Hello, friends. This is Mrs. Dennis, and welcome to your first ELA lesson from our curriculum. We are going to start with Unit 1, Lesson 1. So when we start with our lessons, I'm going to start by introducing some vocabulary, introducing our read aloud for that day, introducing some potential discussion questions. So today's day 1. It's the first day. I'm going to take it a little bit slower today, but we are going to pick up the pace as we move on. So, Unit 1, Lesson 1. So I want everybody to take a look at this map. Okay, so the story that we're going to be reading this week is called The Wind in the Willows, and we're going to read a chapter a day. But before we get to that, I want you to take a look at this map. So the author for our story, his name is Kenneth Grahame. Now, he was born in Scotland. Can you find Scotland on that map? I want you to take a really good look, and I want you to look at the yellow. Do you see it? Do you see Scotland? Perfect. That is where our author is from. He did move to England when he was very young, but he was born in Scotland. So he lived in what we call the UK. There are 4 countries that make up the UK, or United Kingdom. And those other countries are Ireland and Wales. So Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales are the 4 countries that make up the UK. Now, just a little fun fact, I've been to Ireland and England, and I'm looking forward to going to Scotland and Wales one day in the future. Now, what do you see? I see some fun stuff on the screen right now. What do you call this where you're from? Do you call it pop? A few of you might call it pop. Do you call it soda? Well, some people might call it soda. Do you call it Coke? Yeah, some people might call it Coke. Or do you call it just a simple soft drink? Well, where I'm from, I call it pop. But lots of my friends are from different places, and they call it soda. And I have friends that also call it Coke. And then I know people that just call it what it is a simple soft drink. So depending on where you're from, you might say things a little bit differently. And that's going to get us to our story. When you listen to this story, you're going to hear some things that don't quite sound like something you're used to. And it's going to be the language. It's going to be some language that you hear that doesn't quite sound exactly like what you're used to. So just remember, just because we call it one thing, someone else might call it something different, but it is still the same thing. These are just some other very popular children's books. Charlotte's Web, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Chronicles of Narnia, Where the Wild Things Are, A Wrinkle in Time. There's also a movie about A Wrinkle in Time. Now, as far as the book Where the Wild Things Are, I am going to read that to you this year, but it's just going to be a little bit later in the year. Now, image 1, this is a willow tree. This willow tree is representative of the willow that is in our story. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the characters and the things that are in the story. This is the willow tree. Now that we've talked about the willow tree, right, because the story is called The Wind in the Willows, we are going to talk about the characters. Now, these aren't the characters that you're typically used to, right? It's not going to be a little girl and a little boy, or a mom and a dad, or the characters that you're used to seeing. One of the main characters in this story is is a mole. Yep, look at that. One of the main characters in this story is a mole. And the other main character in this story is a water rat. These are the two characters that you're going to hear about first. Now, there are other characters in the story. A badger and a toad are also other characters in the story. So the characters in this story act like people. They talk, they walk, they have thoughts and feelings. So these characters, although they're not people, they act like people. This is called personification. Personification is when an animal or thing in a story behaves or is described like a person. So I want you to say that. Go ahead, repeat that. Say personification. Say it one more time for me. Personification. So what word do you hear inside of personification? When you say personification, what word do you hear? Say it again. Personification. I want you to recognize something. I want you to recognize the word person. Okay? And remember that personification is when an animal or a thing is given the characteristics of a person. So it could be walking, talking, wearing clothes, those kinds of things. So remember, personification is when an animal or an object is given characteristics of a person. Person, personification, right? Do you get it? Perfect. Now, throughout the book, you are going to hear lots of examples of personification. Plenty of examples of personification. Now, through the plot of the story is what we call the events of the story. So every story has a plot, right? Every story has a plot. And the plot of any story is what we call the events. So if you want to kind of think of the plot as what's happening in the story, then you can think of the plot as what's happening in the story. So the two things I want us to focus on while we listen to the story is I want you to listen for examples of personification with your characters, and I want you to think about the plot. Okay? Remember, examples of personification, and I want you to listen for the plot of the story. Now, as we do that, I want you to, there are other characters in the story. So, and there are other objects in the story. So here we have the riverbank. We have the riverbank. You see where she's sitting? We have the river and then the riverbank along the river. We have a glowworm, another character in the story. An otter will be another character in the story that you will hear. We have kingfisher, moorhens, and dabchicks. These are all types of birds that you'll find in a river, in or near a river. We also have a weasel, a stoat, and a fox. Vocabulary. Friends, this is one of the most important parts. So for this, you're going to need a vocabulary journal. So hopefully you have one. Your vocabulary journal is where you're going to keep all of your vocabulary for all of the stories and all the lessons that we do. One place, all of your vocabulary, so you can refer back to it when you need to. So this is the vocabulary for Unit 1, Lesson 1. Now, don't be alarmed if you can't write all this down right now. I am going to put up an additional slideshow. I'm going to put it into your Schoology so that you can go through and take your time and write it very neatly in your vocabulary journal. Let's say that with me, vocabulary journal. Vocabulary journal. I want you to repeat it. Say vocabulary journal. Okay? I want you to say that over and over in your brain. Vocabulary journal, vocabulary journal. because we are going to write lots of words in our vocabulary journal this school year. Here is the very first word that you are going to write in your vocabulary journal. Backwater. B-A-C-K-W-A-T-E-R. I want you to notice, nope, this word is not capital. This word has all lowercase letters. And then there's a picture of backwater. So what is backwater? Backwater is a noun, right? Remember, a noun is a person, place, or thing. In this case, backwater is a thing. And backwater is a peaceful body of water connected to a river, but with little or almost no current or movement. An isolated, unchanged town or village. So I gave you two definitions here. We're just going to focus on the first one. A peaceful body of water connected to a river, but with little or almost no current or movement. That is our first word, backwater. Bolted. Oh my goodness. I know you guys see Usain Bolt right here. Bolted means moved or ran off suddenly. Right, so how many of you have seen those little geckos on the ground? Those little small geckos that run around outside on the ground. Those little geckos, when I try to go get close, they bolt. It bolted away from me. Right, so that is an example of bolted. It means moved or ran off suddenly. Again, don't worry, and bolted is a verb. Bolted is a verb. A verb shows action. Don't worry if you can't write all this down right now. Remember, I'm going to put it up on your Schoology so you can take your time. Contemplated. Oh, friends, that D just got in the wrong place. It should be at right next to the E. I'll make sure that's correct in your Google Slides. Contemplated means considered or thought about or pondered, right? Me, I'm contemplating running 3 miles this evening, okay? Maybe I'll only run 1. I'm going to run something, but I'm contemplating running 3. I'm just not sure how many I'll run. And again, it is a verb. Hesitating, in a halting or pausing way. So how many of you have ever hesitated to do something? Right? You halted. Maybe you were playing outside and your ball ran in the street, but you didn't want to run without looking both ways. So you hesitated. You were hesitating to run in the street. Hesitating in a halting or pausing way. And hesitating is also a verb. Interferes, get in the way and prevent something from working smoothly. So we know that in football, just like this picture shows, you can interfere with someone else getting the ball. Interferes. Remember, get in the way and prevent something from working smoothly. That's interferes. Okay, friends, so this is our last word for today, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to take your vocabulary journal. Remember we said that word over and over, vocabulary journal. This is Unit 1, Lesson 1. Unit 1, Lesson 1. You're going to put your name at the top, first and last. You're going to put today's date at the top, August 18th, 2020. And then you're going to write each word and you're going to write the definition next to it. And then I want you to put a line under the word so you can separate the word from the definition. Okay, remember, this is Unit 1, Lesson 1. And you're going to write each word and the definition. And you're going to put a line underneath the definition. Now, remember, I'm going to put this up on your Schoology so that you can have it. So that you can take your time and write it very neatly. Okay? When you get it done, take a picture, upload it to Class Dojo so that I can take a look at it. Can't wait to see it. Bye-bye.